Hey, what's up, boys, and welcome back to Calm Down Level Up. Today we're here with something a little bit different, but I'm sure y'all all enjoy it. If you guys weren't aware, I used to live stream Nation RP a lot on this channel back in like 2017 and 18. I've been a big fan of Nation RP since the first one that I started back in the spring of 2017. And in these RPs, we really create a lot of really cool and unique stories that could be told in YouTube videos like this. And I've always had this idea to do YouTube history documentary style videos on events that occur in Nation RP. So today I've brought you a fully animated video telling a specific story in a currently ongoing and running RP. In the link in the description, you will find a 6-hour Discord link that you can use to join the RP. After 6 hours, that link will die. So if you want to join, please click soon. Really quick thanks to all the patrons, Call Space, Jordan X, Boba Fett 13, Bubby, and Infinitum Gamer. Thank you all so much. This is the first time I've ever animated and edited a big, huge project like this, so I'm pretty excited. The narration for this video was brought to you by my good friend Walt, so you can thank him for that. And yeah, if you enjoy the video, please let me know in the comments, and I would love to do more of these. Thank you, and enjoy the video.
Not much is known about early Rekolian history, but what we do know is that in the late Bronze Age, the Centaur tribes on the western side of the Rekolian Mountains were unified by a man named Azolas, who took upon the title Azolas the Great. Azolas had been following a supposed prophecy in which the one to unite the Rekolian tribes would go on to conquer the world and find the cure for death. And soon after, Azolas set off to engage in bringing truth to this prophecy. To the east lay the Eldari Council, led by a powerful figure named Victus. The Eldari Council had been an expanding power for quite a while, defeating an orc invasion, conquering the lands known as Poria and Curacao. They also made vassals of their Palmer neighbors of Landlass and Palmerstad. The most recent expansion was the establishment of Rekoh, an Eldari colony north of the Palmer people. Azolas, soon after uniting his people, formed 3 great armies, a northern 40,000 strong army and 2 southern 30,000 strong armies. First, he marched his northern army across the mountains into Lethril, where he found no resistance, and the colonists were wiped out. His southernmost army crossed the mountains into Bruk and Aya, small lizardmen states who immediately surrendered at the sight of these large hordes. The first resistance was met when they entered the territory of the lizardman tribe Thixi, who put up a strong defense, but were ultimately crushed. The Rekolians admired their refusal to surrender and put the leaders of Thixi in charge of a newly formed lizardman puppet state later on. With the lizardmen defeated, the southernmost army could now refocus their efforts on the Alvonians. The third Rekolian army crossed the mountains last and entered the Eldari puppet state of Langmast Kust, a region populated by Palmer, where they resisted with an 11,000 strong army. Though the Rekolians were able to outmaneuver the defenders and crush them in a single engagement, destroying the entire Palmer force, Azolas only facing minimal casualties. The first major defeat occurred when Azolas' northern army entered Palmerstad, where they encountered a Palmer army half their size waiting for them. The northern army attempted to outmaneuver the Palmer, but they were not successful, and a bloody conflict ensued in which no party was able to break the other, and the Rekolian force retreated from the battlefield. They sent for the southern Rekolian army campaigning against the Alvonians to aid them, and after Habshot was destroyed, they marched north, and together with the northern army, destroyed the Palmer defenders. Meanwhile, Palmerstad and its southern territories had petitioned the Eldari Council for help. and had raised an additional volunteer defensive army of 37,000 men to set their camp on a hill in southern Palmerstad. The Eldari responded by sending forward the Counselor Victus, along with 2 holy priests of the moon, one being Eldejon, who will be important later, to the Rekolian encampment. The Rekolians met the Palmer force in battle as the Eldari diplomats arrived at the camp of the Rekolian horde. The Palmer force was utterly destroyed by the overwhelming tactics of the centaurs. The Palmer force, consisting of simple free men and rowdy peasants with no technical experience, stood no chance against the mighty horsemen and their advanced field tactics. They were routed and destroyed, their efforts only leading the countryside to burn with them. Victus and his priests are met by 4 Palmer men on horseback when they enter the camp. They are taken to the central tent to meet with Azulus himself. Azulus presents Victus with a map and questions him on all manner of battle information, troop numbers, placements, the terrain of the east. When Victus refuses to give any information, his right hand was severed. He was tossed a solid gold prosthetic hand in return for Eldari vassalization. The leader of the Fort Federation, Agave, arrives shortly after Victus and his entourage. He entered Azulus's tent after Victus had retired for the evening. Agave was asked the same questions, but instead of an answer, Agave proposed a challenge. They would race, and if Azulus won, the Fort Federation would submit to the Rekolians. Azulus won, and made good progress with his newfound knowledge and vassal. The last Easterner that Azulus would talk to was Eldejon, one of the moon priests brought with Victus. Azulus asks Eldejon the same questions, but also demands that he give him the cure for death, as he is a priest, something that he thinks that the Easterners are hiding from him. At this point, Eldejon was able to sway and fool the Centaur King into heeding his words. They make a pilgrimage to the Lone Hill, and Eldejon performed a ritual of consuming a raw mushroom stew, sending Azulus into a deep trance. The next morning, Azulus awoke and believed he was immortal, due to the admittedly dubious ritual. Azulus was so happy with Eldejon that he was declared to be Azulus's personal priest, and he was granted a solid gold staff. Eldejon was then granted control of a personal 10,000-man army, and was told to march to the capital of Eldari. Taking his army, Eldejon marched on the capital of the Eldari, betraying his countrymen and securing the capital in the hands of Azulus. This, however, did not last long, as the Eldari people, hateful of such a traitorous act and fearful of these new and unknown creatures from the northwest, rioted in mass numbers and drove them and Eldejon from the city, forcing them to camp just outside the city until the rest of the army showed up. But it wouldn't be the Rekolian army that would show up first. Just a few days after leaving the city, the army of Kaldari, a mixed Orcish and human state, allied to the council, showed up from the north. Feeling a trap, the 10,000 Rekolians retreated and began ravaging the countryside, starting by destroying the Eldari puppet states of Sargenta and Landlass, as Azulus's army took the rest of central Eldari. In the west, Azulus's remaining forces annihilated the rest of the Avonian tribes, including a battle against Eldari forces defending the southernmost Avonian tribe of Onlustish. Then, marched east, eager to meet up with their chieftain. Before they were able to reach him, they were suddenly encountered by a war party from Karatolo Fanati, a warlike mountain people to their east. The Karatolan army charged at the unsuspecting Rekolian horde and caught them off guard, though it wasn't enough to overcome the might and numbers of the Rekolian army, and a stalemate ensued. It wasn't until Azulus and his party arrived at the scene and crushed the optimistic attackers. In the north, the mountain folk of Dinyan Minyad y Gwent hatched a plan to march out into the central Eldari land, find Azulus's party, and kill him before he can do any more damage. This plan was very ambitious, and the mountain men would need to rely on the element of surprise in order to successfully catch the Rekolians off guard. Under the leadership of an ambitious new general, they marched out into the Rekolian-controlled territory, hunting for Azulus. But luck would not favor them, as Azulus and his now united army would spot them and outmaneuver the mountain men, slaying over 10,000 men, halving their force before they were able to retreat back to safe territory. The final die was to be cast soon, as Victus gathered the council's forces and called his allies, the Caldari, the Prislahan Trade Republic, and the freshly defeated Dinian army, to meet at a hill in southern Eldari proper. He gathered over 65,000 men, united in defense of the east against the Rekolian invasion. Soon after, the mass of Rekolian bodies began to reveal itself to the defenders as they appeared over the horizon, a stunning united army of roughly 100,000 Rekolian soldiers. The two armies would not stare at each other for very long, as Azulus was sure not to waste any time and let the defenders dig in. Azulus led his men in a charge up the mountain, smashing against the defenders' line. This proved to be disastrous. While Azulus inflicted many casualties, he himself lost 25,000 soldiers in the first day alone. The second day, however, Azulus took advantage of the heavy losses his enemies had taken the day before, and outmaneuvered his foe, and took the hill by nightfall, where the allied army was able to escape and regroup just a short while north. The third day would be the bloodiest of them. Azulus awoke with victory in mind, but the cracks of war exhaustion were beginning to show. His men were weary and deprived of sleep, and had no emotional connection to the land they were fighting for. Though Azulus had great visions, his army could not keep up with them. He led his soldiers into battle against a determined enemy whose homeland was under occupation and would fight and die to see it restored to their hands. This was the nail in the coffin of the Rekolian king's vision. After leading an initially devastating charge, Azulus's armies began to lose the will to fight. The four united armies inflicted 20,000 casualties and took 20,000 casualties themselves. A large portion of Azulus's army began to refuse orders and brought Azulus to leave the battlefield. These 3 days marked the end of the Rekolian invasions into the east, as internal strife rocked the great horde and forced Azulus to give up his conquest and return back to the mountains of Rekolia. Azulus's departure was not the end of the Rekolian influence in the east, however, as Azulus put many of his best commanders in control of the vassal states created out of the conquered territories, including Stomwiaus and Phykeokli, who were run directly by Rekolian commanders. The states of Lesmat Nukmu and Fegdia Finukli were run by trusted lizard and Sarhentan vassals, with heavy Rekolian influence in government and society as a whole. These states would later test the native eastern people in retaking their former lands, either with diplomacy or force.